Have you ever wondered why something as simple as the milk in your morning coffee could be quietly stealing your memories? Right now, millions of people over 70 are pouring what they believe is a healthy beverage into their cereal, their tea, and their smoothies, completely unaware that certain types of milk are contributing to brain fog, memory loss, and even accelerating their journey toward dementia. This isn't about scaremongering. This is about science that most doctors aren't discussing with their patients, and information that could fundamentally change your cognitive future. I'm going to share something with you today that might challenge everything you thought you knew about milk and brain health. For decades, we've been told that milk builds strong bones, provides essential nutrients, and belongs in a healthy diet. And in many ways, that's true. But recent research has uncovered a darker side to certain milk varieties, particularly for aging brains. What you're about to learn could explain why you've been experiencing more forgetfulness, why names seem to slip away more easily, or why concentrating feels harder than it used to. Let me tell you about Barbara. At 73, Barbara prided herself on her sharp mind. She did the daily crossword, managed her own finances, and never missed a doctor's appointment. But over the course of about 18 months, her family started noticing changes. She repeated stories more often. She forgot recent conversations. She seemed confused about events that had just happened. Her daughter was terrified they were watching the early stages of Alzheimer's unfold. Barbara's doctor ran comprehensive tests. No Alzheimer's, no stroke, no obvious neurological disease. Frustrated and frightened, Barbara consulted a nutritionist who specialized in cognitive health. During their conversation, one detail emerged. Barbara had been drinking 2 large glasses of chocolate milk every single day for the past 2 years. She'd switched to it because she loved the taste and thought the calcium was good for her bones. That chocolate milk, it turned out, was systematically damaging her brain. This brings us to the first type of milk that's particularly dangerous for aging brains: sweetened, flavored milks. Chocolate milk, strawberry milk, vanilla milk, and all their cousins seem innocent enough. They taste good. They're marketed as nutritious. Many even claim to provide protein and vitamins. But here's what they don't advertise prominently. These drinks are sugar bombs wrapped in dairy packaging. A single cup of commercial chocolate milk can contain as much sugar as a can of soda, sometimes more. We're talking about 15 to 25 grams of sugar in just one serving. When you consume that much sugar, especially regularly, your blood glucose spikes dramatically. Your pancreas floods your system with insulin to bring that sugar under control. Over time, your cells become less responsive to insulin. This condition, called insulin resistance, doesn't just increase your diabetes risk, it directly damages your brain. Here's why this matters so much for cognition. Your brain is an energy-hungry organ. It consumes about 20% of your body's glucose despite being only 2% of your body weight. When insulin resistance develops, your brain cells struggle to take in and use glucose effectively. It's like your brain is starving in the middle of plenty. This metabolic dysfunction is so strongly linked to dementia that some researchers now call Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes. But sugar does even more damage. High sugar intake triggers inflammation throughout your body, including in your brain. This chronic, low-grade inflammation damages neurons, disrupts communication between brain cells, and accelerates cognitive decline. The inflammatory chemicals produced when you consume excess sugar can cross into your brain and cause direct tissue damage. Additionally, many flavored milks contain artificial colors, synthetic flavors, and preservatives that add to this inflammatory burden. Barbara's nutritionist explained all of this and suggested she eliminate the chocolate milk entirely. Barbara was skeptical but desperate enough to try. She switched to unsweetened almond milk and added a small amount of cocoa powder if she wanted flavor. Within 6 weeks, her family noticed she was sharper. Within 3 months, the confusion had largely cleared. Her memory, while not perfect, had improved dramatically. The damage from those 2 years of daily chocolate milk was largely reversible because they caught it relatively early. The second type of milk undermining brain health in older adults might surprise you because it's often marketed as the healthy alternative: ultra-processed plant-based milks. Now, before you think I'm condemning all plant-based options, let me be clear. Simple, minimally processed plant milks can be excellent choices. The problem is with the heavily processed commercial versions loaded with additives. Walk down the plant milk aisle of any grocery store and read the ingredient labels. Many contain a shocking array of chemicals: carrageenan, gellan gum, guar gum, xanthan gum, natural flavors, which aren't always natural, artificial sweeteners, synthetic vitamins, and preservatives. Some contain 10 or 15 ingredients when real almond milk should only have almonds and water. Why does this matter for your brain? As we age, our bodies become less efficient at detoxifying and eliminating synthetic compounds. These additives accumulate in tissues, including brain tissue. Substances like carrageenan have been shown in studies to trigger inflammatory responses. Guar gum and other thickeners can disrupt gut bacteria, and emerging research links gut health directly to brain health through what scientists call the gut-brain axis. Additionally, many of these plant milks are sweetened with problematic substances. Some use regular sugar, creating the same insulin resistance issues we discussed. Others use artificial sweeteners like sucralose or aspartame. While the research remains somewhat controversial, multiple studies have associated artificial sweetener consumption with increased dementia risk and poorer cognitive outcomes in older adults. The mechanisms aren't fully understood, but they may involve alterations in brain chemistry, increased inflammation, and changes in how the brain processes rewards and satisfaction. Let me share Robert's story. Robert was 76 and had switched to oat milk 3 years earlier because he'd read that dairy was inflammatory. He chose a popular commercial brand and drank it liberally, proud of his health-conscious choice. But over those 3 years, he noticed his thinking becoming foggier. He struggled to follow complex conversations. His energy plummeted. His doctor found nothing obviously wrong. When Robert's son visited and examined the oat milk container, he was shocked by the ingredient list: oats, water, rapeseed oil, dipotassium phosphate, calcium carbonate, tricalcium phosphate, sea salt, gellan gum, and added vitamins. Robert was essentially drinking a chemistry experiment. His son, a nutritionist, suggested making homemade oat milk or buying a brand with only oats and water. Robert made the switch. Within a month, the mental fog began lifting. His energy returned, his thinking sharpened. The difference was remarkable. The third problematic milk category is full-fat dairy milk high in saturated fat. This one generates controversy because dairy has passionate defenders and dairy fat has been somewhat rehabilitated in popular nutrition discussions. But when it comes to brain health in people over 70, the evidence remains concerning. Saturated fat, the type abundant in whole milk, cream, and full-fat dairy products, raises LDL cholesterol, the so-called bad cholesterol. Elevated LDL leads to atherosclerosis, the buildup of plaques in arteries throughout your body, including the tiny blood vessels feeding your brain. Your brain needs constant, robust blood flow to function. When those small cerebral arteries become narrowed or blocked, brain tissue doesn't receive adequate oxygen and nutrients. Memory suffers. Processing speed slows. Risk of vascular dementia and stroke increases substantially. Multiple large studies have found associations between high saturated fat intake and increased dementia risk. One particularly compelling study followed thousands of older adults for decades and found that those consuming the most saturated fat had significantly higher rates of cognitive decline and dementia compared to those consuming less. The mechanism appears to involve both the direct vascular damage and increased inflammation that saturated fats promote. This doesn't mean you must avoid all dairy fat entirely, but moderation becomes critical, especially after 70. If you love dairy milk, choosing low-fat or fat-free versions substantially reduces saturated fat intake while maintaining protein and calcium benefits. Many people resist this change because they find reduced fat milk less satisfying, but taste adaptation occurs within a few weeks for most individuals. Eleanor discovered this the hard way. At 78, she'd always used heavy cream in her coffee and whole milk in her cooking. She consumed dairy fat liberally because she believed it was natural and therefore healthy. When she began experiencing significant memory problems and was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, her neurologist asked detailed questions about her diet. He explained that her cholesterol was dangerously high and her brain scans showed concerning changes in her small blood vessels. Eleanor reluctantly switched to 1% milk and eliminated cream. She hated it initially, but within 6 months, her cholesterol had dropped significantly. Her neurologist noted improvements in her cognitive testing scores. Eleanor became a convert, realizing that her attachment to full-fat dairy had been putting her brain at serious risk. The fourth and final milk type to approach cautiously is calcium-fortified milk with excessive additives, particularly those using synthetic calcium compounds. This category includes both dairy and plant-based milks that have been heavily fortified. On the surface, extra calcium sounds beneficial, especially for older adults concerned about bone health. But the reality is more complicated. Many fortified milks use calcium carbonate or other poorly absorbed forms of synthetic calcium. Your body can only absorb and utilize a certain amount of calcium at once. When you consume these fortified products, especially multiple times daily, you may be flooding your system with calcium that can't be properly processed. This excess calcium doesn't simply get excreted. It can deposit in soft tissues, including blood vessel walls and organs. Vascular calcification. The hardening of arteries due to calcium deposits reduces blood vessel flexibility and function. In the brain, this impairs circulation and oxygen delivery. Some research has linked excessive calcium supplementation, particularly from synthetic sources, to increased cardiovascular and cerebrovascular events. While the research specifically on fortified milk remains limited, the biological mechanisms warrant caution. Additionally, heavily fortified milks often contain the same problematic additives we discussed earlier: stabilizers, emulsifiers, synthetic vitamins in forms your body doesn't utilize efficiently, and sometimes added sugars. You end up with a product that's less food and more engineered beverage. The solution isn't to avoid calcium. Adequate calcium is crucial for bone health and many bodily functions. But getting calcium from whole food sources, including modest amounts of plain dairy or calcium-rich vegetables like leafy greens, provides better absorption and avoids the risks of synthetic fortification. If you do choose fortified products, select those with minimal additional ingredients and consume them as part of a varied diet rather than relying on them as primary calcium sources. So, what should you drink instead? The answer depends on your individual health status, preferences, and any dietary restrictions, but some general principles apply. If you tolerate dairy well and have no specific contraindications, plain, low-fat or fat-free milk without added sugars can be a reasonable choice. It provides high-quality protein, natural calcium, and B vitamins without excessive saturated fat. If you prefer plant-based options, look for products with very short ingredient lists. The best plant milks contain only the plant source and water, perhaps with a tiny amount of salt. Even better, consider making your own. Homemade almond, oat, or cashew milk takes minutes to prepare, costs less than commercial versions, and contains exactly what you put in it, nothing but real food. Avoid anything labeled as flavored, sweetened, or dessert style. Read nutrition labels carefully. Look for products with less than 5 grams of sugar per serving, ideally from natural sources rather than added sweeteners. Check ingredient lists and choose options you can pronounce and recognize as actual food items. Consider your overall dietary pattern too. No single food or beverage determines your brain health destiny. If you eat a diet rich in vegetables, fruits, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats, the occasional indulgence in less than ideal milk won't destroy your cognition. But if your daily routine includes multiple servings of problematic milk types, addressing this pattern could yield significant cognitive benefits. Also, stay hydrated with plain water. Many older adults don't drink enough water, which itself impairs cognitive function. Sometimes we reach for milk or other beverages when our bodies actually need water. Ensuring adequate hydration supports every aspect of brain function and may reduce cravings for sweet drinks. Finally, consult with your healthcare provider, particularly if you're experiencing cognitive symptoms or have risk factors for dementia. They can assess whether your diet, including milk choices, might be contributing to problems and can provide personalized guidance based on your complete health picture. Some people have specific conditions that make certain recommendations more or less appropriate for their situation. The overarching message is this: your brain health is too precious to leave to chance, and diet plays a more powerful role than most people realize. The milk you choose may seem like a trivial decision, but when you consume it daily for years, those choices accumulate into significant impacts on your cognitive function and independence. You have the power to protect your memory, preserve your mental sharpness, and reduce your dementia risk through simple, practical changes. Eliminating sweetened, flavored milks removes a major source of brain-damaging sugar and inflammation. Choosing minimally processed plant milks or making your own eliminates harmful additives. Selecting lower-fat dairy options when you consume dairy protects your brain's blood vessels. And avoiding excessively fortified products with synthetic additives reduces your exposure to compounds your aging body struggles to process. These aren't difficult changes. They don't require expensive supplements or complicated protocols. They simply require awareness and intentional choices at the grocery store. Read those labels. Ask questions. Choose real food over engineered products. Your brain will thank you with clearer thinking, better memory, and a reduced risk of the cognitive decline that robs so many older adults of their independence and joy. Starting today, I encourage you to examine what you're drinking. Look at the milk in your refrigerator right now. Read the label. If it's full of sugar, additives, or ingredients you don't recognize, consider making a change. Try a cleaner alternative for 1 week and notice how you feel. Pay attention to your mental clarity, your energy, your ability to concentrate. Many people notice improvements within days or weeks of eliminating problematic products. Your brain has carried you through 7 decades or more of life. It deserves protection, respect, and the best possible nutrition you can provide. Don't let something as seemingly innocent as your daily milk undermine the cognitive health you've worked so hard to maintain. Make informed choices. Take control of this simple but powerful aspect of your health. Your memory, your independence, and your future self are counting on you.